Hey friends, this is Dolynny TV. Glad to have you aboard here this afternoon, this evening, whatever you consider this time change warp that we're on this first Sunday of November. The Oilers, they've been on some kind of warp to start the season as well. A terrible start to the year that by the end of November 1st suddenly looks a lot better than it did just a few days ago. Of course, as I mentioned in the live stream earlier today, it kind of comes down to the situation where you've gotten points in your last 4 games, and that really benefits you climbing up the standings when you're at least clawing a point out of every single game you play. So for the Oilers, well, how bad is it? Well, is good enough? Is anything been good enough? That is the questions we'll dive into in today's edition here on Dolynny TV. Glad to be back in the studio. House sitting has come to an end over the past week here, so glad to get back to the regular routine for the month of November. So let's not waste any time, friends. If you are new to the channel, consider hitting that subscribe button here on Dolynny TV. It's free and easy to do. The goal is to try and get up there to 20,000 by the end of this hockey season. At 18-1 something, we're closing in day by day. All right, let's get to it, shall we? Let's look at the Oilers' start. As of November 1st, there has been some shuffling in the standings today as well, but as of earlier today, the Oilers are top 10 in the NHL, and, well, they got 15 points on the ledger, 4 points out of first place overall. Yes, I understand they played maybe a couple more games than most of the first place or top teams. It is what it is, and hey, you know what? We're just glad to be in the conversation with points in the bag. Goals for, goals against, goaltending. Here's one good question for you. Has it been good enough? Yes, we are a winning team this year. Has it been great? No. Well, what did we expect, right? Did we expect anything else? Not really. 41-41 goals for, goals against split for the Edmonton Oilers. Boils down to a 6-4-3 record so far this year and a 4-0-2 home defense thus far. So the Oilers, I mean, hey, you know what? When we get to home ice, we've been cooking. Still yet to have a regulation loss on home ice this season. Yes, one of those losses was the Calgary Flames in overtime to start the year. But other than that, everything has been great, really, for the Oilers at home. And, big 4 victories there to get you to a 6-4-3 record. And that's how you end up with 15 points in 13 games played. Now, November is going to be a busy month again. So too will December. But the question I think that this video does beg is, has anything truly been good enough for the Oilers outside of their record? This is the silly part about this, really, is the Oilers have been good enough to get to 15 points, 6-4-3 record, and be in the top 10 of the NHL after November 1st. Great, golden. If that holds all the way to American Thanksgiving, again, percentage-wise, other than us that one year, things are going to come up our way pretty good. So we'll see if that is the case. But every single night to keep that going, at some point, goaltending, defense, and the forwards are going to have big nights together, right? And I think that's where, when I say, has anything been good enough, some things have been good night in, night out, or a couple of nights a week, or in a specific game, while everything else has been bad for the Edmonton Oilers. So really, if you can start getting everything from this was good enough tonight, this wasn't, to everything was just good enough. The Oilers getting healthier, right? Zach Hyman's on track to be back here sometime, hopefully in the next week. I know we said that earlier, but right, you're starting to put this team back together. You got Jack Roslovic contributing points now. Jake Wallman's having a heck of a year. I told you Nugent Hopkins has an outside chance at 100 points again, and right now pacing 82, so not bad for him. The big boys and Connor and Leon continue to produce points, albeit outside of scoring a ton of goals. But hey, you know what? Like I said, the offense, it has been good enough to get you to a 6-4-3 record. And if it gets to the good level, boy, are we going to pile up points. And if it gets to the great level, my goodness, we are going to dummy some teams in November. So that's really the question here from the Edmonton Oilers perspective, is just how much better things can get. And obviously with the guys getting healthy, trade rumors around Troy Stecher now as of last night, things are starting to progress here for the Edmonton Oilers in terms of what comes next. And what comes next after a mediocre start, many would say, is winning. And that's where the Oilers have been really good at flipping the switch about mid-November and really going out there and winning a bunch of games. So if that again is the case here over the next few weeks, things could get real interesting real quick. And of course, that would really lend itself to us getting to a good spot, right? We're battling Vegas for first place, even despite this mediocre start. Yes, Vegas has 2 games in hand, but you start, chipping away game by game by game at that lead, and Vegas starts losing a couple that they've got in hand, and suddenly things look okay for this Edmonton Oilers team that has struggled over the past probably year and a half really to stay healthy, but also, has had mediocre starts in both years. All of a sudden you stay healthy, you keep winning, and the offense starts producing. You get some goaltending like we have to start this year, right? Stu Skinner's goals against average is down significantly from last year and even the year before, but, save percentage is kind of in the same realm. And then Calvin Pickard's been worse, probably the worst he's been as an Edmonton Oilers goaltender so far. So you got to hope the goaltending kind of starts picking it up just a little bit, not too much, an extra 5 points on Skinner's save percentage probably gets you a lot more wins. A couple of less goals against average points there for Calvin Pickard probably, dials up win every time for Pickard, given the way the Oilers like to play in front of him. The defense, again, for them, causing more goals than costing, that would start to factor. And, Darnell Nurse has had a pretty good start to the year offensively. Jake Wallman's been good. Evan Bouchard's starting to heat up again for the Oilers here with the overtime winner against the Chicago Blackhawks last night. So you start to see how things could really start to translate here for the Oilers. And then all of a sudden you get Zach Hyman back in. The lineup shuffles around one more time, hopefully settles up for 20 or 25 games. The Oilers get into a good groove, and you just kind of set the pace right until the Olympic break. Connor McDavid goes and wins a gold medal for Canada, and we just laugh our way to a Stanley Cup victory. Sounds way better than it actually will be, but you get where the idea is going. Is this Oilers team is, just treading water enough to stay right where they need to be to really strike once Hyman gets back. And again, things have been good enough at times. Nothing's been great ever, but the start as a sum has been good enough to get the Oilers to a spot that, over the next week or so, that when Zach Hyman comes back, everything's going to be hunky-dory. If he comes back 100% and contributing kind of like Kane did at the start of the playoffs last year, dust it up. The Edmonton Oilers are going to run away with this thing, but again, that is dependent on things tidying themselves up and just really coming together. And, hopefully Zach Hyman is that piece that does that. If not, I don't know how much all of us will tolerate a ho-hum, just get by and get into the top 3 spots in the Pacific season out of the Oilers. Because at some point we got to put a division banner up there at Rogers Place. I think it's due time and it's got to happen. So, friends, that's really all I've got for you today. Again, the Oilers starting November on the right foot with that victory against Chicago. And now, what can they do the rest of the way home? It's St. Louis up next. Can they cook up a big old victory? We're going to see. For right now, though, I am up on out of here.